Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Somerset North Planning Committee. So I'm Councillor Cathy Pearce, Chair of the committee, and to my right is Councillor Matt Martin, who is Vice Chair. Just a few housekeeping things. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm goes, it's the real thing. If we all head out of the double doors back into reception and into King Square, that would be great. There are toilets in reception should anyone need them, and there is water to your right over on the table there. Please feel free to help yourself. The meeting is a hybrid meeting, and that means that committee members are present in Bridgewater House, and the meeting is also available online via Teams. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. Can I remind all those in the room to turn your mobile phones off or to silent? And can those joining us online please turn off your cameras and microphones so that the meeting isn't disturbed. I'll now introduce those taking part in the committee today. To my left are the officers from our legal and democratic teams, and to my right are the planning officers who will present the applications. On the wings of the tables are the councillors who will debate and decide the applications. The format will be as per the published agenda, and a copy of the officer reports can be found on the council website. Each application will be taken in turn. Officers will outline each application, followed by public speaking time. Only members of the public who have registered to speak can make representation, and councillors around the table will then debate and decide on each application. During the debate, there will be a proposer and seconder for a resolution. Members will vote on the proposal. Only members who have been present throughout the whole application will be able to vote, and the voting options are for, against, abstain and defer. Votes will be counted and the results announced. So that takes us into the main agenda. So number one on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We received no apologies for absence this meeting.
Okay, thank you. I know Councillor Bruce isn't here yet, but she is on her way. And of course, if she should arrive during the application, she won't be able to take part in the debate. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are they agreed as a correct record? Councillor Slocum.
Are you proposing?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Martin, seconding. All in favour, please show. Thank you, members, that's agreed. Now to item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Leslie, could you take us through the declarations, please?
Certainly, Chair. Planning is often a particularly emotive matter, and it's important that processes are not only carried out fairly, but appear to an unbiased observer to be so. This minimises the risk of challenge to the council, but also to individual members from a conduct point of view. Under the Members' Code of Conduct, members must declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registerable interests, and or non-registerable interests in any matter being considered at the meeting. A disclosable pecuniary interest, or DPI, is broadly defined as a business interest, e.g. employment, trade, profession, contracts, or any member is associated, as for example, trust funds, investments and assets, including land and property. A full list of can be found in Table 1 in the Members' Code of Conduct. Where a member has a DPI and they have not received a dispensation from the monitoring officer, they must not participate in the discussion nor vote on the matter and must leave the room during discussion of the item of business. Other registerable interests include any unpaid directorships, any body of which a member is a member or are in position of general control or management, to which the councillor is nominated or appointed by the council, any body of which a councillor is a member or in a position of general control or management, 1, exercising functions of a public nature, 2, directed to charitable purposes, or 3, one of those principal purposes includes the influence of public opinion or policy. including any political party or trade union. A member must disclose the interest. They may speak on the matter only if members of the public are also allowed to speak, but otherwise they must not take part in any discussion or vote and must not remain in the room unless they have been granted a dispensation. The exception to this is where other registrable interest relates to either an unpaid directorship in a company owned by the council, or where the unitary councillor is a member of another local authority, i.e. a parish council. And in terms of non-registrable interests, these were formerly known as personal interests and are often defined as an item of business where a decision in relation to it might reasonably be regarded as affecting the well-being or financial position of the member, a member of the member's family, or a person with whom they have a close association, more than any council taxpayer, ratepayer, or inhabitants of the authority's area. And then finally, I need to address you on the issues of predetermination and bias and predisposition. Councillors must also be aware of and act within the rules of predetermination and bias. Avoidance of bias or predetermination is a principle of natural justice. And the basic legal position is that a councillor should not take part in deciding on a matter if they are biased or have predetermined the matter. As a member of the planning committee, if you have expressed a view on the application, in order to participate in the decision making, you will need to have an open mind about the outcome of the application and indicate that you do at the start of the meeting. However, if your mind is made up and you will vote against the application or for it, then you will be regarded as having predetermined the outcome of the application, and therefore you will first need to declare this at the meeting and then indicate that you will speak against or for the application, but will then leave the room afterwards and not participate in the vote. And then in terms of predisposition, the law makes a distinction between predetermination, which rules out participation in the decision-making process, and predisposition, which does not. A councillor is entitled to have and express views on local matters, both general and more specific. These views may indicate that a councillor has a predisposition towards a particular policy or viewpoint. This is perfectly acceptable, and a councillor with predisposition may take part in the decision-making. However, a predisposition will become a predetermination if, in relation to any matter, a councillor has taken a stance which indicates that they have finally closed their mind on the matter and that nothing they hear at the planning committee will alter their position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Thank you. One is the application on page 117 is in my area. I've not taken any part in the discussions. So I'm with an open mind. And the other one is I'm a member of the Axbury Drainage Board who are consulted by this body. I've not taken any part in their discussion about the applications either.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the first application. I need to declare at the meeting that regardless of my previous objection to the scheme, I am prepared to listen to the proposal with an open mind and then make a considered decision based on the information presented by all sides at this meeting. And I'm also a member of the Bridgewater Town Council, but have taken no part in any discussions.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Chair. Member of the Axbury Drainage Board since Councillor Filmer, but I've spoken to anybody in any conversation, anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Okay, I did yes, sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yes, item 6, Ashcart, Bridgewater, Somerset is in my patch. I have been party to conversations regarding this application, but I remained unbiased, undetermined rather, and I come to the meeting with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley.
So I'm a member of Bridgewater Town Council, but I've taken no part in any discussions about this item as opposed to the agenda.
Thank you. Also, I need to declare as a member of Bridgewater Town Council, I too have not taken part on any discussion regarding the planning application for land to the south of Quantock Road, agenda item 5. Thank you. So if there are no further, oh, sorry, councillor Grime.
Okay, on page 170, it's within my ward, taking no part in discussion.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 4, which is public question time. There are some members of the public who have registered to speak, and I'll call you to the table when we are discussing that particular application. So that brings us on to the first of the applications, agenda item 5, application for land to the south of Quantock Road, Bridgewater, pages 23 to 100 on your reports. I'll now invite Louise Jelly, who is the officer who's been dealing with this application, to present the application for us.
Madam Chairman, I just remembered, do I also have to declare that I'm the ward councillor, that one of the ward councillors? Sorry.
We will note that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Louise Jelly and I'm the case officer for this application, planning reference 23/19/00002 at land to the south of Quantock Road, Bridgewater. This is a hybrid application which comprises a full application for 111 dwellings, formation of a signal controlled access off Quantock Road with associated infrastructure, landscaping and open space that forms phase 1 of the development, and then outline application with all matters reserved for the erection of up to 212 residential dwellings with associated infrastructure, landscaping and open space, and that forms phase 2 of the proposed development. This is a revision to a major planning application. So it was presented originally and determined by the planning committee back in March 2021. There have been local objections and parish council objections to this scheme, so it comes back to committee again, but it is a revision. The main considerations in this case comprise the principle of development, design and scale, heritage and archaeological impacts, residential amenity, access and highway impacts, impact on landscape and ecology, flood risk and drainage, and financial viability and planning obligations. The plans in front of you show the site location of the proposal as submitted. It lies to the west of Bridgewater near to the cemetery. The site is shown in red. The access is off a new junction along Quantock Road. The other side of the road to the north comprises development which is currently under construction. And the site forms the southern section of the B2 allocation of the local plan, so it is an allocated site. This plan just shows the current policy position, the fact that it is allocated within the local plan, and that development has commenced to the north, and this forms the southern section of the site and just shows you the proposal in the overall scale of development currently underway. This plan is the proposed site plan, just takes you a little bit closer into the site. Phase 1 is outlined in the dark green, and that's the full application for 111 dwellings. Phase 2 is the lighter shaded one that sits to further to the east of the site. The proposal is set back from Quantock Road. There are attenuation features which lie to the front of the site, 2 features along phase 1 and then 1 on the phase 2 section of the site. The land slopes downwards from the south to the north. The topography of the land slopes downwards towards Quantock Road. The LEAP, or the local equipped area of play for phase 1, has been centrally located towards the middle of the site. There are a mix of 1 to 4 bed properties. 32 dwellings are proposed for affordable housing across the 2 phases, and that comprises 10% in total. Just to give you some idea and outlook of the proposed house types, this is a 4-bed house type example, detached property with render and brick detail to the side, rear and front. The next house type is a 2-bed house type example, semi-detached property with red brick and grey pan tiles. This is an example of a 3-bed, 2.5-storey dwelling. They tend to be located more towards the central areas of the site rather than the external areas, the boundaries. Feature dormer windows, and there is render detailing to the front of that one. This is another 3-bed house type example, another detached property with feature and render detailing. We move on to a 2-bed house type with a study office sort of ability to work from home, and that's another semi-detached example proposed. This proposed house type is a 4-bed with integral garage, again detached with pitch roof feature and both red brick and render detailing. She shows another 4-bed example, again with pitch roof feature, predominantly red brick, grey pan tiles, detached property. And it's just an example of another 3-bed with separate garage or parking areas. There's no integral garage with this one, again with red brick and grey pan tile detailing. Finally, just another 3-bed example, slightly smaller, semi-detached. The next plan we move on to is street scenes. This is a street scene shown through part of the middle of the site. So this is where there are the 2.5-storey dwellings located predominantly. Just shows you an array of units of various sizes and types. But that is where the blue arrow is on the plan inset that shows you that that street scene forms the kind of central area of the phase 1 of the application site. The next street scene, that would be the view taken from the front of the site. So looking from Grantop Road on entrance from the main road, again incorporates the render features, generally larger properties in this location. Just shows you the view from the main road as you'd access the main development. This street scene forms part of the eastern side of the site. The LEAP, the local equipped area, plays in close proximity to this site, and these properties look onto kind of the landscape corridor feature, which forms part of phase 1 due to an easement issue. Plan shown here is just to give you an indication and show you where the footpath links are proposed for this site. The orange dash line runs from north across Grantop Road through the central area of the site and towards the south, towards Heathcombe Road. That's the existing public right of way. So it runs from the northern part of the site that's commenced through the scheme itself and then into Heathcombe Road where there are existing properties. So that's the orange dash line. The pink dash lines show the proposed sort of pedestrian links. It shows 3 links out towards Grantop Road and then linkages into the existing public right of way located on the edge of phase 1. Just to give you some context, and site photographs have been taken. This first one is the view from Grantop Road, looking southwest onto the site. As you can see, the site slopes upwards from Grantop, so the properties at the top towards the edge of the site are existing properties looking down towards Grantop Road. This is another view taken from another side of Grantop Road, looking southeast over the site. Again, just to give you an example of the slope, the topography, the kind of landform in general terms for that area. Site photograph 3, that's a view from the north of the site, looking southeast over the site again. Site photograph 4, again from the north of the site, so the Grantop Road site looking south towards existing properties. This is a view from the kind of centre of the site, so sort of located between phases 1 and 2, looking west. Again, just another sort of picture from the other way, but again from the centre of the site. In terms of the key changes since the 2021 application, as I've said, this was recommended and resolved to be approved previously by members, but there have been some changes since the 2021 submission. There's been a reduction in the total number of dwellings across both phases from 352 units to 323. So there's now 111 proposed for phase 1 and 212 proposed for phase 2. The locally equipped area of play has been relocated towards the centre of the phase 1 site. So it's a bit more centrally located for those using it and away from existing neighbours who raised concerns previously. The open area to the east of the site has been removed from the application and is going to be retained as greenfield land. This has resulted in the relocation of the footpath that was previously shown, now connects to the A39 located to the northeast. There's an attenuation pond that's been removed, but the overall capacity of attenuation ponds has remained the same. The site access junction has been revised. But critically, the key issue, the change in this particular revision is the viability, and there's reduced proposed affordable housing provision. So from 28 to 16 units for phase 1, made up of 8 one-bed units, 4 2-bed units, 4 3-bed units, and then as a total, it's 10% affordable housing across both phases. This has been reduced from the policy compliant 30% for financial viability reasons. The main issue in this case is viability. So the scheme is for 323 dwellings. It's a revised proposal further to an original submission, which was determined positively by members in March 21, subject to conditions and a 106 legal agreement. Since then, the scheme has undergone a financial viability assessment and found to be financially unviable with a policy compliant level of affordable housing of 30%. The proposal therefore now seeks to provide 10% on-site affordable housing provision. Officers of the council have considered the viability matters of this scheme at length and have accepted the findings of the assessment. An independent financial viability assessor looked at the scheme on behalf of the council and agreed that 10% was viable in this case. There is a caveat subject to a clawback mechanism which would form part of the 106 agreement to ensure that any potential unspent monies for highway infrastructure, specifically at the Dunball roundabout upgrade scheme, could be redirected towards off-site affordable housing contributions just to help bump the numbers up for the local area where possible. It's also agreed that the education request is to be altered from the increased 2025 ask by £2 million in order that that difference can then be put towards off-site affordable housing delivery for the local area. This would mean a revised education contribution of around 2.241 million. And the additional 2 million being asked for the 2025 example would be put towards off-site affordable housing provision. This has been agreed and discussed with the education team and senior officers of Somerset Council. So the 2025 revised education contribution totaled around 4.241 million. In terms of the 2 million being directed for off-site affordable housing, the revised education ask would now be 2.241 million due to viability. So to sum up in the planning balance, the principal development, it's an allocated site within the local plan and was previously approved by members in 2021. So that is a key material consideration in this case. Somerset cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and so the tilted balance is engaged by virtue of the NPPF. We consider as officers that design is of a good quality, the housing numbers on site have been reduced, separation distances increased and privacy levels improved through the submission of revised plans. There is no increase in flood risk. Statutory consultees were consulted and they're satisfied subject to conditions. Highway and access, the local highway authority are also satisfied subject to conditions, the proposed travel plan and the section 106 requests. Residential amenity is not significantly adversely affected, and as we've said, through revised plans, we've tried to improve separation distances and improve privacy levels for the site overall. Landscape and visual impact. As per the original application, an LVIA was submitted and officers are satisfied that the development of this site can be mitigated for in landscape terms. So subject to conditions, retention of hedgerows on site, proposed landscaping measures, and any details coming forward at reserve matter stage, we consider that landscape and visual impact is acceptable in this case. When the application was previously considered in 2021, there were not considered to be any significant heritage or archaeological impacts. That remains the case for this particular revision. And so this scheme is not considered to alter the existing stance with respect to heritage impacts at this time. As I said previously, with respect to viability, The proposal is now seeking 10% affordable housing on site as opposed to 30%. But off-site affordable housing is to be provided by means of a clawback mechanism via unspent highway monies and the revised education contribution, which would be redirected to off-site affordable housing provision. And in terms of ecology, we had some revised plans submitted with respect to updated survey information and a dark corridors plan, and ecology are now satisfied subject to conditions. On balance, we consider this application to be acceptable subject to conditions and the section 106, which was tested through viability. There are no updates to the report as shown to members. And then just to summarise, we recommend to members to approve subject to conditions and a signed 106 agreement comprising the following: on-site provision for children's play space with an enhanced local equipped area of play, local area of play in phase 1, and provision of multi-use games area and local area of play in phase 2. Provision of bonds through the 106 to ensure delivery of the public open space with initial maintenance period. Maintenance of the public open space would be by means of either a management and maintenance company or by adoption through the council. This is yet to be agreed, but will be drawn up and signed and dealt with through the 106. The education contribution being requested would be put towards primary and nursery provision, would comprise the 2.241 million minus the 2 million asked from 2025. And that would be put towards the off-site affordable housing provision for the local area. There would be a neighbourhood centre contribution of £22,250. The provision of pedestrian and cycle routes through the site that connect through to Quantock Road and the northern part of the site under construction. Travel plan and bonds for access provision. And there's also for highways a financial contribution for off-site highway works, A, to allow for connectivity improvements along Quantock Road, and B, to provide improvements to the Dunball roundabout. So there'd be a provision of around £65,000 for the connectivity improvements and £1,282.27 per dwelling towards the Dunball roundabout. There would be delivery of 10% on-site affordable housing, and then the clawback mechanism within the 106 to enable provision of off-site affordable housing contributions where monies towards the Dunball roundabout is unspent or not deemed to be required in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers on this application. First, I'd like to call Robin Layton of Derby Parish Council, please, to the table. You have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start and we'll set the timer.
I am ready to start, I think.
Thank you.
Derby Parish Council are disappointed by the lack of consideration to the footpath called Queenswood Lane to the south of the development site. Persimmon, in their planning application, have barely mentioned this footpath, linking the new development southwards to the Durley estate. They have rightly emphasised the importance of reducing car journeys and providing footpaths, yet their latest plans show no tarmac path from the development to the existing footpath. This path is over 3 metres wide for most of its length, but muddy and reduced to 1 metre by brambles and rubble. It is not in a condition to attract school children and those who expect to walk on a surfaced and lit pavement. Would you expect your children to use such a path? Without this path, Durley residents will have to drive or walk 2 kilometres through the narrow estate roads and along the busy A39 to reach the new development. Parents on the Persimmon estate may wish to send their children to St Mary's Primary School or Haygrove Secondary School, and this vital link will save many car journeys, clogging the streets and parking places. The path is also a link to the bus stop on Polford Road. We need to recognise the importance of this vital transport link, and so I propose that the footpath BW 38/15, known as Queenswood Lane, should be linked to the development by a short paved and lit footpath on the development site. This should happen by the time the first houses are sold, rather than after the development is finished. 2, that the footpath BW 38/15 should be cleared of rubbish, tarmacked and lit by the time that the first houses are sold, rather than after the development has finished. Durley Parish Council won't get any civil money for the first part of the development. They won't be able to pay for this. Thank you. So it's basically about that footpath. We want it sorted.
Thank you. We'll respond to those questions raised after the second speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Michael Bonjour, sorry, of Persimmon Homes, please. Again, 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready to start. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Ready. Chair, members and officers, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Persimmon Homes, Severn Valley's hybrid planning application for 323 new homes on this allocated site at Quantock Road, West Bridgewater.
Go up a bit in volume?
My name is myself and Tara, and I'm a planner at Persimmon Homes, Severn Valley, and I will provide a summary of the key points raised in the officer's report. This application is the result of a long and constructive dialogue with your officers. Members may recall that a resolution to approve was originally granted back in March 2021, but the scheme never proceeded to a formal decision as the site was deemed unviable. Since then, we have worked closely with officers to address that position, submitting an independent viability assessment in 2023 and an updated report earlier this year, both of which were independently reviewed on behalf of Somerset Council. That open and evidence-led process has ensured that the scheme before you this afternoon is importantly deliverable and policy compliant. If approved, this application will grant full permission for 111 homes in phase 1 and outline consent for a further 212 homes in phase 2. Each phase will deliver well-considered landscaping, infrastructure, and accessible public open space. All homes will be zero carbon ready, meeting more modern sustainability standards, and 10% will be delivered through a local housing association, helping to reduce Somerset Council's waiting list, which currently exceeds 12,500 households. This scheme also brings significant community investment. Through constructive discussions with Somerset Council, the Section 106 contributions have been refined to maximise local benefit. £2 million will support local education, while another £2 million will help deliver affordable homes off-site. Beyond housing, the scheme invests heavily in local infrastructure, with £479,000 for highways upgrades, £18,000 for sustainable travel measures, and over £22,000 for the neighbourhood centre, and cell payments exceeding £1.5 million to support wider community improvement. Environmentally, the design retains existing trees and hedgerows, introduces 3 sustainable drainage ponds, and creates a dark corridor for wildlife. New pedestrian and cycle connections will make this a safe, walkable, and sustainable community. Persimmon is proud of its record in Bridgewater, supporting local first-time buyers and families, with around half of our private sales to first-time buyers. These homes will provide much-needed affordable routes onto the housing ladder for local people. Members, this is an allocated site shaped by constructive engagement with a local authority, reviewed independently and now ready to deliver sustainable new homes for Bridgewater. Its approval would secure local housing, significant community benefits, and long-term investment. Thank you for allowing me to present our plans for this scheme, and I respectfully request members consider the officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I ask officers to respond to?
Seriously, I believe I've been registered to speak as well. The Woking Parish Council clerk sent an email in asking me to be registered.
I'm very sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Can I just check a moment?
Yeah, me too.
Can I ask where you sent the email to, please? It might help us locate it.
Sorry, I don't have a copy with you. It was, our clerk sent it and it would have been to the address on the
Yeah.
notice.
Okay, thank you.
Sent out. It's any help, I think it would have been juice or anything.
I really apologise for that. I mean, it was received but not sent to the officer who
Oh, yeah.
administers our committee. So would you like to come to the table, please? Yeah, yeah. And as you all know, 3 minutes, just let us know when you're ready to start, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman, councillors and officers. My name is Peter Major and I'm speaking on behalf of Wemden Parish Council. Wemden Parish Council accepts this application will be approved, but requests that if it is, you will add some additional conditions to improve pedestrian access through the site. I'll explain. As you heard, Early Parish Council as well as Wemden have continued to object to the application because the applicant has consistently ignored Somerset's principles for sustainable transport. These are set out in the Somerset Future Transport Plan, the Sedgemoor Strategy and the Sedgemoor Local Plan. To anybody who doesn't know the area, like most of you, the applicant's proposals appear to comply. For example, the travel plan mentions access on foot or bike to various facilities via Quantock Road and Wemden Road, but makes light of the fact that the initial part of that route is along a narrow pavement along the busy A39. It's the most direct route, but it's not attractive, viable or safe. Another so-called provision in the travel plan is the bus service through the emerging Cokerhurst Farm development on the other side of Quantock Road. That is misinformation. That potential service will be dependent on the completion of both phases of that development, and that's likely to take 5 years or more. On site, though, there are improvements that can be made. The layout plan approved by a committee in 2021 showed a surfaced path to the public right-of-way at the southern edge of the site, as Mr. Layton has been speaking about. That path disappeared from subsequent revisions and certainly is not there on the most recent version of the master plan that I've seen on the website and needs to be reinstated. The right-of-way follows the western boundary of phase 1 within the new dark zone and will potentially make a pleasant pedestrian route. In the current plans, the path is poorly defined with no indication of how it is to be surfaced, if at all. The path needs to be given a suitable all-weather surface if it is to be useful all year round and extended to the new pedestrian crossing at the A39 junction. That's where you, the members of the Planning Committee, can make a difference. Insist on the inclusion of additional conditions to improve the pedestrian route. Path with all-weather surface from the right-of-way where it enters the southern edge of the site to the nearest internal footpaths. The right-of-way through the site to be provided with an all-weather surface to be joined up to the proposed footpaths to the north of Spine Road near the play areas and to be extended to the A39 junction. This is not a lot to ask of you. Just support your own council policies and improve the provision for the future residents by adding a couple of conditions when you agree to grant permission. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I'll
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just to say to members, we've got a similar situation, I think, with another potential speaker online. We're just trying to locate that she's online, and then we'll invite her to speak if so. If you'll just bear with us a few minutes, please. In the meantime, can I just say, Councillor Bruce, because you joined us part way through the presentation, you won't be able to take part in this debate.
I appreciate I wouldn't be able to vote. Am I allowed to ask a question at all? Later on.
Chair,
If I can't
could
vote.
assist there, yes, indeed, councillor is correct. She cannot take part in the vote.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't heard, but she could again ask this.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Rather an unusual request, but can I ask if there is an Emily Frost online who has registered to speak, please? I'm not hearing any reply, so I'll take that as a no, and we haven't received any written representation, have we? So we can't read out anything. No. Okay, in that case, we will proceed. And officers, Louise, can I ask, there were some queries, a lot of questions there about public right of way. Are you able to respond to those, please?
It's just to say, I was just looking through the conditions. Condition 19 talks about proposed roads, including a network of footpaths, cycleways and turning spaces shall be constructed in such a manner to ensure that each dwelling before it's occupied shall be served by properly consolidated and surface pathway and carriageway. I think that talks about proposed roads rather than existing. Potentially the existing public right of way within the red line, there could be something conditioned there. Outside of the red line, it becomes slightly more problematic. As set out previously, the local highway authority and the public rights of way officer were both consulted on this application at least twice, if not 3 times. I didn't get any information from them or request from them to upgrade or make good the existing public right of way that lies outside of the red line, because you've got the public right of way that comes through the site, but obviously there is parts of it that sit outside the red line, so out of the applicant's control.
Can I ask, could you bring up the map of the site, please, just so that we're clear on which bits are included and which bits are currently not included? Thank you.
So on this particular plan, you can see that the orange dashed line is the existing public right of way. So it goes into the north of the site that's currently under construction, runs along Quantock Road, comes through this proposed site and then down south into the existing residential area. So part of the existing public footpath is within the red line of the site, but there is considerable amounts outside of it. I can't speak for what's happened on the north of the site, that's currently under construction. I am told that improvements are being made in terms of the crossings for Quantock Road to make sure that the linkages between the north and south occur. I'm advised there is a bus stop to the south of the site and that there is a bus stop available to the north via Inwood Road. And there are up to three crossing points for Quantock Road as part of the highway upgrades to Quantock Road and this traffic signal control junction. But with respect to the existing public right of way, as I said, some of it lies within the red line, some of it lies outside of the red line, and that isn't within the applicant's control as it stands, those parts that are outside.
Thank you. I may need to come back on that, but I'll ask Dawn first to.
Thank you. So just as a point of clarification, obviously the route of the current public right of way is indicated in orange there. Where it crosses the A39 is not and won't be the safe crossing point. So in terms of the allocated site going over both parcels of land, the main junction crossing the main road, which is a controlled signalised crossing for peds and cycles, that is where all the purple lines are and where the site access is. So effectively the route of the existing public right of way will be encouraged to go across the safe crossing of the A39. So that's the first of 3 crossing points. The second crossing point is just where the second access to the northern development is, which is almost opposite where the cemetery is. That's had consent for tactile crossings and now has a safe refuge in the middle as well, because there's a right-hand turn then going in there. and there's an existing drop curb right at the far end of the site, and that's remaining. So the 3 crossing points across the A39 are in and enhanced. The public right of way, almost the route will be pushed down towards a signalised crossing to make sure that people can get across safely. Beyond that, within the northern development, the main ped and cycle link is encouraged through the main access road to the school, but there is also an access across the front and to the back of the allocated school site as well. At the very southern end, which is just where you can see the dotted line going in, I think the first speaker was right that in 2021, that entrance point into the Persimmon site was shown as a defined path. It's not shown as a defined path on the current layout, but it is shown as an informal access with a turning head. So there's only a small area of land which isn't paved, but it's not a defined path with lighting. And there are also dark corridor links sort of across most of the boundaries of this site for ecology. So we wouldn't, from an ecology point of view, particularly want it lit. But there is probably scope for improving the accessibility to the existing public right of way entrance at that point, if that was something that members were particularly interested in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got councillor Martin first and then councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation and information. I have a couple of questions. If I rattle off the questions and then you can come back to me with the answers, that would be please. First one's a clarification with regard to the 2.4 million or whatever it was that was set aside for the education. I believe it was on your final slide where there was some calculation that was made. It was let's call it 2.4 million that was allocated and then minus 2 million. And can you just clarify what those numbers mean again, please, and how much will end up actually in the education pot at the end of it, just for my benefit?
I'll just find the slide for you.
Thank you.
So the bit in bold at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the bit in bold at the bottom. So as of this year, 2025, education came back as a consultee to say that their costs have gone up. So the initial request in 2021 had gone up from 2.24 million to 4.241 million. So between 2021 and 2025, that's how much the education cost had increased between that period. However, in terms of the viability, it was recognised that the policy compliant level of affordable housing couldn't be reached. So it was affordable housing that were taking the hit. So from a viability perspective, education were getting their ask, but affordable housing were not. So there was a big discussion around how could we help improve, increase, enhance the affordable housing provision. So in combination with senior officers from Somerset and the education team and the affordable housing team, we kind of sat around the table and thrashed it out as officers to kind of see what we could do. And the consensus was, the agreement was with the education team that they would kind of forfeit their additional ask between the 4 years. So between 2021 and 2025, take the 2 million off so that basically the education ask is the original 2021 ask. And that additional 2 million that they were seeking would be put towards off-site affordable housing contributions. And it would be included in a 106. So it wouldn't be anything, it would be all done legally, bound, signed, sealed as part of that agreement.
That's great. Thank you. That makes that a lot clearer. So with the education now, are we still confident that the education people, they've agreed to this deal, and I think it's a good one. Are we still confident that the provision is going to be satisfactory with the extra number of properties coming on board?
No. in that a school cost, what a school cost to build. So they have quoted us for the cost to build the school. That's bearing in mind the obligation that they've got from the northern phase, but also the obligation they were asking for from this phase. What they do have is they have other revenue streams to go to in the event they can't match their costs, and they sort of seek confirmation of funding through other routes. It's not ideal, but you know, the situation of balancing finances for development is challenging, and the education ask is the one thing that sort of really pushed this over. And in terms of affordable housing, you know, we did have a below policy compliant position on the northern side. We ended up with a below policy compliant situation on this side. It's an allocated site in the local plan. So we are pushing to drive up delivery of housing and affordable housing. And this was the best of a worst case scenario. So it's not all smiles and everyone's happy, but it's the best position we can get to.
All right, so education has got another string to its bow there. That's good. Thank you. And one more question, if I could, with regard to this path, which is, of course, so much higher. We say that at the moment it sits on the boundary between the two sections, and as a consequence, we can't confirm what's going to happen with that particular path. Presumably, when the other section comes online, they're going to be in the same situation because half of it lies in the first section. So that is interesting to me because it seems so confusing. But there also didn't seem to be much comment to be made. Some of our contributors spoke about having it cleaned up and paved or tarred or whatever. I don't recall any comments on that in the presentation.
There weren't any comments, as I've said, partly because the existing public right of way is split. So you've got some of it in the red line. Now, if you feel it necessary, that part can be controlled because it's within the red line of the site. So potentially improvements and enhancements or lighting can be made. It's outside of this that is not, it's beyond Persimmon's control because it's not within the red line. It's in the northern side of someone else's, or it's outside within the control of or highway land in residential existing areas. What I will say is where that existing public right of way is, we have now been asked by Ecology, I'll just scroll up and try to find the other plan, to provide a dark corridors area for ecological benefit, which asks to make those areas darker. And if I'll just find the plan, the dark corridors are shown these hatched lines here going around sort of the outskirts of phase 1, and that sits where the existing public right of way is. So it's again a balancing act about ecology versus an existing public right of way and how that's treated. As I said, there is a condition in the application recommended to you about proposed footpaths and networks to make sure that they are properly surfaced, lit appropriately. But this is an existing public right of way where we are seeking a dark corridors by virtue of the ecology request. So it's a balancing act, but that bit within the red line, you probably could seek some improvement should you wish to, but it would be to the detriment of the ecology ask that's sort the dark corridors provision.
I see. Okay, so if we were to think about that, we would be asking the developer to lean towards a goodwill sort of thing with the paving of it.
Yeah, because as presented, we haven't discussed or requested that with the applicant.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
I've got a few questions, if that's all right, Madam Chairman. Sorry about this, but just a few things. I think Persimmon Homes have tried their hardest to try to meet a lot of the criteria. But I think if anyone knows Quantop Road, they will actually realise the pavements are very narrow. It's a very heavy laden traffic route, and I'm a bit disappointed about the management plans. And I would support additional conditions to improve the pedestrian route, definitely. There doesn't seem to be any provision for footpaths or cycleways along the Quantop Road, the north of the development, and it would be good to know provision to surface and light the footpath from the development of the Holford Road end. That would be really good. Could I also say I'm really disappointed about the 30% affordable housing. I think there is a definite need for this, and I think it's disappointing that has been altered. I do understand for the education need. I know it's pay Peter to pay Paul, but I just think we do need affordable housing. The revised travel plan is definitely not clear. There's no connecting routes to 14 and 15 services which service this area. I'd like to raise concerns about the lack of transport links. No comprehensive transport plan is in place, which is a bit worrying. Obviously, residents have asked for bungalows, but it is what it is. A new service, well-lit route must be provided for the rights of way, I think, in the interest of pedestrian safety, and this is under the local plan policy D13. So, the public rights of way provides a convenient short walk from development to the bus stop in Holford Road, to St Mary's School in Haygrove, so to the local shops also in Queenswood. It'd be good to have this as part of a 106 agreement, if that was possible. I think most of the issues I think we're talking about are concerns for children and people driving. There is going to be more people on the road driving from the A39 up to the schools, up through the estate, which is just, we need to get this right. And I think that this is the major concerns that I have at the moment is the travel plan. And could I also say it has been noted by the NHS Somerset Integrated Board that they formally recorded the proposed development will, obviously give greater demand on them. We know that's going to happen. So there's much demands on everyone. But I think if we could get this traffic, this well-lit traffic area sorted and safety for our young children, because here we are trying to tell our children we want them to walk to school. And this is a prime example of where they won't be able to. They'll have to have cars on the road because the A39, we all know HPC traffic on that movement is horrendous at the moment. So I do think something needs to be done here, and any additional conditions that could be put on this, I think would greatly alleviate the worry. Thank you. I reserve the right to come back if there's anything else, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to come back for any of those comments at this stage?
I think my only point is the point that has been raised already in terms of there is a condition 19, which looks at proposed roads, including network of footpath and cycleways and turning spaces, shall be constructed such base course. So there is a condition in there that controls it already. Having a look at the layout plan in terms of, I think the only thing that's really missing in terms of the footpath connection is the development that's nearest where the existing right of way goes into the field parcel is there is a turning head there, but it stops short of the red outline. So, it could be that is extended to provide the network. So within the heads of terms of the 106, we can require a connectivity plan to show all the connection points from, into and through the site and get that back down so it only supports condition 19 if members were particularly wanting to pursue that. I would just push back on the lighting bit because as was shown, it is in a dark corridor area. So we have got a number of conditions recommended by ecology in terms of ecology betterment, dark areas, and we haven't even got a lighting plan. So I wouldn't want to push members to the point where we end up conflicting with ourselves in terms of trying to secure a lighting plan and then trying to secure lighting within that area that we're trying to limit. Within the detailed layout of the 111, there are footpath routes shown from sort of the southern end of the site to the northern end of the site. So I apologise, we haven't got a more zoomed in picture. It doesn't quite follow the same route as the designated right of way that's in place at the moment. It does run more centrally because it runs to the safe signalised pedestrian crossing point, which then does lead you to further pedestrian and cycle connections, which are being delivered by the northern land parcel. So those connections to the wider area will exist in the future. It's still under construction, so they're not there yet, but the intention is they will be there. And the layout and arrangement of this development has been organised to try and follow that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Not sure if Councillor Phil was before me. Okay, thank you. First of all, apologies for being late today. I'm gutted because I really wanted to vote on this. I think there comes a point, if I may, when we need to say that we've got to stop giving approval to housing without putting the right infrastructure in place. And I'm really, really concerned about this. And I think I've gone to the planning application letters from the education and from NHS, and I think I'd just like to read them out. Is that okay, Chair?
Yes.
Just some sections of them. So in terms of the NHS, application was first registered, there was already a direct and identifiable impact on the local primary care provision. Since then, pressures on general practice capacity have intensified, and I'm reading from their letter, and the local system is now operating with insufficient infrastructure to accommodate the additional patient growth associated with this development. So they are saying that this will generate additional demand on the already stretched primary care services, and it requires mitigation through the provision of additional capacity. There is no mitigation in this planning application, there is no provision for any additional service capacity in the primary care network in Bridgewater. So we know that we are approving housing without making sure that there is provision for the primary care network. And then if you look at the education one, the letter from then says, as was stated earlier, that the total of 4.24 million is still required to enable the school to be developed. And it does say in there that the extra funds that's missing now would possibly be agreed to be secured in another way outside the planning system, possibly through SIL funding or through other capital bid processes, which at present are not secured. So we have a school that does not have guaranteed funding. We have no actual concrete method of securing the funding that's missing from it. And we have the primary care network that is not able to provide the provision for services that's needed for the people that are going to live there. So we have completely insufficient infrastructure. So for me, this is an absolute no, and I'm gutted that I can't vote on it.
Thank you.
Just to go back on the healthcare point, I completely agree with what you say, and healthcare for me is top of the list. However, as a planning officer, you rely on your consultees to provide calculations, justification, and why they need the money. In both instances, the 2021 application and this application, and I've checked, they didn't respond to us. So we can't ask for something that they don't tell us that they need. So I completely agree with what you say, but the healthcare never provided a response in 2021. And when they did in 2025, it was really, really late, and they never gave us an actual calculation for what they needed in the first place.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Philmore.
Couple of questions if I could. It's starting with what we've been talking about in terms of healthcare. I understand they've not given us that. We have been told that there is £2 million which we're taking away from education, which we've currently said will be allocated to affordable housing. I presume it would be within this authority's power to decide how to allocate that £2 million and whether a proportion of that went to affordable housing and a proportion went to health. But I mean, I'll wait for an answer on that one. In terms of the affordable housing, there was a question on that one anyway, which was, it says it will go to local affordable housing. Can I just ask what local means? Are we talking the parishes around? Are we talking about Bridgewater? Are we talking about the former Sedgemoor area? Are we talking about the whole Somerset? Would like to know what local means, because obviously this is a local development that has impacts locally, and you'd hope that the mitigation is reflecting that. The parish council, I think from Durley, said they weren't going to be able to get any SIL money from this development to help them do their paths. I just wanted to know, who is the local parish council who's going to receive it if it's not Durley? Because the reference number on this is Durley. So I would have thought there would be a fairly substantial lump of SIL money potentially going to them, but there might be a different calculation because it's an urban edge of Bridgewater. So, but would be just asking for a clarification on that. And the final thing, which was me being slightly cynical, the area to the side of the application has been taken away from it, the greenfield space, which is going to be left as greenfield. I think it stays with the current owners. So I just wondered, is that being defined as a green space going forward, or is it just happen to be a piece of green land that happens to be next door to a building site?
Thank you. Taking one point at a time, I think in terms of parish and SIL, Durley does cover part of this outline. On the side, on the northern side of the road, I know there was 3 different parishes that got covered. So in that respect, you split the SIL where the parish boundary lies. So I think the point was being made by Durley that they wouldn't see the SIL payments soon, because it takes a while for the construction to get up and going. It takes a while for the development to come forward. And that actually, by the time they've got meaningful receipts from the development's pretty much advanced, which is why I think the preference was to front load the mitigation as much as they can. So it's not that they won't benefit from SIL, they will, but it will be a long time from today for them to actually get those receipts. In terms of the Greenland, I believe, I'm going to go from memory, I think that's the land next to the cemetery, which was always planned to be Greenland. It's not currently within the red line for this site, so it's not currently controlled by this application in terms of the remit of this application. It is still part of the wider allocated site. It's still within the blue land, so it's still within, it's still part of the main scheme, but it's been excluded from this development and is outside of the control of consideration for this committee at this point. So future status to be revealed at a later point, I think. There was a third question, I'm sorry, I forgot what it was.
Applications, money between.
Yes. So the debate that happened, because we are seeing a lot of sites arguing viability, normally 9 times out of 10, it is affordable housing that take the hit. So normally, you know, a policy compliant position on-site delivery for this site would be 30%. That is what members were looking at in 2021. Because of viability, the easiest thing to take out is affordable housing. So they took it out, they reduced it to 10%. It was accepted by the external viability review that with 10% and all the other obligations, that is all the development can afford. So effectively, we've got sight of what the contributions can be from this site through that viability appraisal. In service directors, in the ambition to try and improve affordable housing delivery, the decision was made corporately that as an authority, we would like to remove that provision from education and put it towards affordable housing. So we've got at least that benefit through this proposal. Ultimately, the people making the decision on the application is you as a committee. If you as a committee feel that, you know, corporately you don't want to go down that approach and actually you prefer to have an amount go to the NHS, the point I would raise is probably similar to the point that Louise has raised, in that we don't actually know how much money they need or what they need it for, or if they can actually use that. Because I think within the comment, it was about, it's not about sort of just having funds, it's about having the space to expand to. So, you know, my questions from a CAFOS perspective would be, do you have that space? What sites are you looking at? What extension do you need? How much does that cost? And that's where you get to the contribution. But without that fact and figure, we haven't been able to make that balance, which is why we've come down to the 2 million towards affordable housing. Did you want to come back?
It was just, if I can get one further clarification on the question I asked, which was local provision of affordable housing is what's local. And there was one final question I was just going to ask in terms of the footpath we've been discussing. Have there been discussion, and I might be upsetting the local parish council at this point, but I don't know, so I'll just go for it. Have there been any discussion about redirection of that footpath? Because as you mentioned, where it currently sends people over the road is not where the crossings are going to be. If you rerouted it, you could have a much better route through the what being built up, properly lit and not affecting your dark corridors for your nature as well. And it just seems to have what was a historic route through what is no longer going to be there. Why hasn't it actually been looked at as being a rerouted footpath route?
Yeah. So on the 2 points, I think the area for spending affordable housing sums, I think are currently linked to the former district geographic areas. So in terms of local contributions, it would go within the former Sedgemoor district area. In terms of the footpath, I think as a matter of course, when this application, if this application gets approved, there would be a diversion order being applied for, because you would end up having houses and back gardens going through what is the existing route. So that said, the internal layout does accommodate for safe pedestrian links from the north to the south and vice versa. As I said earlier, the one bit that's missing is probably the actual connection point from the turning head closest to where the existing access point is and into that. But I think following the debate from members, if that's something members want to push, we can push that through the 106. But yes, it would be subject to a diversion order to the extent that it's within the red outline of this site. But obviously we can't divert it outside the red outline of this site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowles, please.
Thank you. A lot of it's been covered. One of it's to do with the initial report on page 90. The transition between the two. I'm a bit confused on this affordable housing issue. It says on site here at 30% at the top. Is that an error?
That was referenced to the original obligations that members saw in 2021.
Okay, well, just go staying on with that, when we're talking about offsite, affordable housing, and then it's also referred to as local affordable housing, does that mean offsite isn't going to be local affordable housing? I think it follows up on councillor Filmer's comment.
Offsite just means it wouldn't be on this site, so 10% would be on this site, but the offsite provision of £2 million would go to the local area, which Dawn's confirmed is within the Central District. So it'd be monies £2 million towards offsite, not on this particular site. That would be 10% on this site, and then 2 million within the Central District area.
I was thinking where it said 30%, that we're going to make the 30% up with the on-site at 10 and 20% elsewhere.
The 30%, I believe, is just what was originally,
yeah.
yes, so in the 2021 proposal.
I have a question. Why cannot the 2 million that it would be allocated to offsite, why can that not actually be allocated to this site?
It may end up being allocated to this site in the end, but that's all outside of the planning process. So at the moment, what members have got is the full application before you for consideration for the 111, which is the detailed element of the consent. Beyond that, we've got the outline planning permission. So what the developer is saying is they physically themselves cannot deliver more than 10% on this site. If there ends up being future discussions with future affordable housing providers that the local authority can support in delivering affordable units on the later phases of this site, that could be an outcome, but it's an outcome outside of this decision. So the only thing we've got control of for this decision is what can be delivered by the developer on the site and what off-site contributions could we be using. So the 106 that would be connected to this application would be the provision of 10% on this actual site and provision of 2 million towards the local authority to deliver off-site affordable housing, which could be on phase 2 or not, or maybe even on the northern phase of the development that's coming forward. But that's all down to future discussions that haven't happened yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, you said that you requested the information from the ICB about the calculations and the space and things that they would need in terms of mitigation. Did you actually send a letter requesting that information and they didn't respond to it? Because the letter that they sent seems to respond to a letter or a request for further comment on the application. We can't see that letter that was sent from you as planners to them, so I can't see exactly what they're responding to. But I would appreciate, if possible, even after this meeting, having the information about the correspondence, because this is something that we need to pick up with Adults Health and Scrutiny to make sure that we are aligning development growth with the provision of healthcare. But I'd like to know, really, did you ask that specific question and just not get a reply from them?
I will go for no, because in 2021 they weren't a consultee, because they've only recently become a consultee on planning applications. So what they would have had is notification of the application and in one of the revisions that have been received in the last couple of years. So as part of that revised consultation, they sent the response that you've seen. When we normally consult them, the facts that I set out is what they normally provide us with. And they say the requirement is X, that calculates this figure, and therefore the need is this figure. I think because they knew we were in viability discussions and that we were so far down the line, I assume they took the view that they were too late to then ask for additional money, because there isn't additional money. So the question would have been just, how do we split the money we've got to try and accommodate for everyone? But they haven't provided us with the normal breakdown, because normally when we get comments from them, it is, you know, normally specific in terms of what they actually need and how they need it. We haven't had that in this case. I'm assuming it's because they commented so late, but it would have just been a standard consultation to them that we've had revised information on this scheme. The right comment, and that's the comment we received.
I did gather from their response that they had assumed that because of the viability issues, it was as a non-starter. But I do think that in the future, we need to go back and respond to a response when it says the provision remains unresolved, that it's a problem and the needs haven't been met. We as planners need to go back to them and say, actually, if that's not been met, what do you need? And that we need to have all of the information to be able to consider it. And we haven't got that because nobody went back to them and said, well, yes, there are viability issues, but if this is unresolved, what's the issue? What do you need? Because we can't consider what the problem is if we don't know the extent of it. And I think that's definitely something missing there. But thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt and Councillor Slocum.
With regards to any contributions to the NHS, is it still correct that that can only go in square footage of building as opposed to staffing?
Yes, because we can't pay people wages, but we can pay for infrastructure to deliver the space for them to operate out of.
Thank you. At this point, I think I'm quite happy to go with the officer's recommendation, but I would like to include the improvement on the access points, as you said, at the turning heads and everything else, to make sure that the access points going in are properly maintained or maintainable as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Broad, is that a formal proposal?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
I'll second that if I may as well. Also going on from further on from Councillor Bruce, as part of the adult health and scrutiny, I'm really surprised that we all assume, don't we, that it's joined up thinking, and there doesn't seem to be joined up thinking here. And I'm really disturbed at the fact that I think there needs to be more clarity for the ICB. I think we need to clarify points when we need information from them. We need that, and I think we're not doing that anymore. Forgive me, it's not as it used to be. I'm sorry to say that, but it's not. And I think, and that's resource, and I get it, but it doesn't make it any easier. So I think we do need to look at that. We will bring it to scrutiny, definitely bring it to scrutiny, because we do want their impact. We do want them to come back. The other points I would like to say that I originally, there was going to be a surgery, there was going to be a pharmacy in part of this, I believe, but I may be wrong about that. You can perhaps answer that. That may be the other side. The one thing I would daily ask for, please, can we ask for something to be done about the walkway? I don't know whether it is down to the developer, but the Quantock Road, if we're going to put a development in Quantock Road and we've got the pathway as bad as it is, then we're just heading for disaster. I could not bear to think that people were coming out of there with small children trying to walk to schools, trying to do something on the pavements as it is. Surely as developer must make safe. And this is not safe as it is now. I never would walk. We've had one very bad fatality there. And I just want to urge that, please, if there could be additional 106 on that, I would to the walkways. And I still believe that the public rights of way should be there. I really do. I think that for safety as well, but no doubt there'll be another reason why that can't happen. But if you could just take my points, I appreciate it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to respond about the pathways along the A39?
Sorry, I was just trying to find the detail of the highway plan, so apologies we haven't got this for members, but effectively there is just looking at the site entrance as it is, the pathway goes down to where the safe pedestrian crossing point is. There's effectively two lines of traffic going out, so one going immediately to the left, one going straight ahead and one going down into Bridgewater. And then there's a right-hand turn lane as well. So in terms of the site frontage, you've got pavements across the site frontage. Appreciate that doesn't actually fix anything that's on this side of Quantock Road. As part of the wider development to the north, there is ped and cycle connections, not along the A39, but when you go into the site immediately across the frontage of the site, that's all part of the northern connection point. So from this site to the northern connection point and through the northern development site up to Wemden, there are those routes proposed as part of the allocation, but they are under construction. So appreciate they're not there yet. I did also speak to Head of Highways before the meeting about the overgrown nature of that route. If that route is being proposed and delivered by the developer and the developers in the room hearing this, it is the developer's responsibility to maintain that. If it gets given over to adoption to the council, it is then the council's job to maintain that. So through the adoption process, we would have more control over the sort of roadside planting.
Thank you. Councillor
If I may come back, please, I do think that people who don't know Quantock Road respectfully very well, goes back to, our dear councillor Bradford's idea. There's no doubt about it. If you look at Quantock Road and you've got the crossovers are far coming into Bridgewater. There are no crossovers further up. There really aren't. It's a very dangerous route. And that was the one thing that we were always concerned. And I'll be honest, I'm really surprised that we haven't got somebody from Highways here, because they could probably expel our fears. They could probably explain the intricate bits that we can't be expected to know. But we really need Highways. And I do feel disappointed that there's somebody from Highways not here today.
Just to be clear though, were you not saying that there are routes, improved routes from where the access points are? Some of those being taking people across to the northern side, but but there are routes that pedestrians and cyclists would be directed to, which would be safe.
Yeah, so there are three. The main one that affects this one at the moment is the main site entrance, and the bit you can see sort of in purple there. That is the main site entrance.
Excuse me, sorry. Do you have a light where you're showing where you normally do? That would really help people know what you're talking about. I'm so sorry.
We're just figuring out the technical name.
Sorry.
See there, we've got a little white arrow.
Right, can you see the cursor?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that is the main site entrance. This is one arm of what is effectively a 4-arm junction. So if members are driving it any time recently, you'll see there's a whole lot of construction going on. The main road has been widened and the entrance into the northern parcel's already been delivered. This would be another entrance coming off at that cross junction. As part of that cross junction, there is safe ped and cycle pavements and links on both sides of the main road. There are islands to cross those things, and then there's a signalised crossing to get to the northern land parcel as well. And then from there is a safe ped and cycle connection all the way up through. The intention is to finally get to the top end corner of the site, but obviously it's a large site under a development period of a number of years, so it will be quite a long time in coming. About halfway up the northern development parcel is the bus gate, so again that provides another link back to and through into the site. The secondary access for pedestrian crossing is probably just off of the far end corner of this site, yeah, just about there, where the secondary access into Cokhurst is. So again, if members are driving down there, that access is also under construction at the moment. So that would be a tactile crossing point with a safe refuge in the middle. So they are putting a safe refuge in the middle, which wasn't originally intended, but it is going in now because of the right-hand turn lane to get into that development. And even further down still, there are currently just drop curbs on either side of the road. That is staying. So the existing crossing point is staying. There's a middle crossing point that is improved in terms of safety features, and this crossing point where the main entrance to the site is the full bells and whistles job with pavements on either side and pedestrian controls for ped and cycle, which will then go into the northern section and all the improvements for that. But fully appreciate it's a very large allocated site, so it will take a number of years for all of those to come to full fruition. That's the worry.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is, I apologise for not knowing this site. I mean, I know the area, but the guys that surround me know this area much better than I do. And as a consequence, I feel quite awkward commenting on it. But with regard to Councillor Slocum's comments on the path, do your comments, rather I'll ask Councillor Slocum, do the comments you've heard here, do they satisfy your queries and the queries we heard from one of our speakers earlier? Do they cover the points required?
No, not completely. It's the bit in between. It's the actual getting into Bridgewater on the very narrow pathways. That's what I'm concerned about. I get it by the site, we're not considering the other bit, which is fair enough, I understand. And because it's going to take so long, that is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, okay. And so is that something that could be brought up with conversation with the developers during the process?
Yeah, in terms of this particular site, so I know the issue is almost the dissection of this site from the wider area, but we have to, because we can only consider the applications before us. In terms of the site entrance, I've gone through that quite a lot. I was actually going to ask Louise to go back to the plan she was just on.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at, look at,
Sorry.
to show you the kind of thing around.
Yeah, so the other part is the eastern edge of the site. So that's where the second of the two crossing points are. So the issue is really that the front of Quantock Road between the site access and the far east corner isn't very safe. There's not very much pavement. It's quite overgrown. It's a little bit hazardous to walk. And I've driven it quite frequently, and you're absolutely right. The site entrance is the bells and whistles, signalised crossing, absolutely safe. The other thing that's shown that I don't know if members can see very clearly, but there's almost like a red line just in that corner. So in terms of the site layout of this development, there is a footpath shown from the end of that development going straight down, which would then pop you out right where the secondary access is for the scheme on the northern side. So again, it almost removes the unsafe link immediately on the A39 and enables you to get to the crossing point, which would then again on the northern side give you access to the pavements that would then get you through the system as well. So in terms of how this development relates to wider connectivity, we're happy they've done what they should be doing. My one caveat is that obviously it doesn't quite connect with the public right of way at the top end of the site, but we can cover that with the additions that you've already voted on.
So thank you. That's useful. So, and the second one I had of three, the second one I had is a comment with regard to Councillor Filmer's concerns with the allocation of affordable housing. We know that we can say until the council come home that they'll go to the local people, local applicants, but without a valid and up-to-date housing needs assessment in the area, that becomes, it doesn't matter. So how would we determine whether they're going to go to?
It would be in the 106 in terms of the contributions to go towards set out in the 106.
So then it becomes an academic procedure rather than actually knowing that Bill Niggins needs a house and make sure he gets one. You know what I mean?
Ring-fenced.
Yeah, but when it is ring fenced, we said that thing only happens on the day that can say, right, on this day, we're going to look for local people. If we don't get them, then we'll have to go further afield. Eventually that further afield is sorry. But the houses won't stay empty for any of them.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is local lettings.
No, well, no, specifically how people that are in those environs now, how they can be assured that the properties that are there will go to people in the area that need them.
Oh, for the 10% that's being delivered on the
Yes.
site.
Yes.
Okay. Because this is an allocated site in the local plan, it's allocated not just for local growth, but also for strategic delivery. So we cannot ring fence it for locals first
There we go.
because it's part of the strategic allocation.
That's what I was after. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Filmer, that was where I was going with that. And as a last one, it's just a comment really, and this is a wonderful teachable moment because it's a not necessarily a tricky application, but we have this situation whereby we've got this sort of wayward £2 million that's being swapped around between affordable housing here, education here, healthcare here, and we all want them to have an equal provision, but we know that equitable situations rarely arise. I mean, there are some people in the UK that have got £79 million and some people that have got nothing. We could say, well, to make it really equitable, we can give everybody in the country £1. That doesn't really help anybody. It's perfectly equitable, but it's useless. So we have this £2 million that we want to spend to the best of our ability. From my point of view, it's education. My colleagues, some want to go to housing, some want healthcare. We can't spend on everything, and it becomes incumbent upon us to do the best we can. The phrase that we've all heard so many times is that people only ever see the decisions you've made, not the choices you've had. So maybe we can hope that our friends in the local democracy reporting service, when this follows off on Facebook later, when they say, why did you do this? Well, these are the choices we had. We don't get a lot of wiggle room. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor Martin. So we have no more speaker. Councillor Bradford, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got one question. People are saying to me, why don't some of the new developments have solar panels on the roofs? There's a lot of solar farms planned locally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a number of people have been saying to me that for years, actually. Well, you on the planning committee, Alan, do something about it. Say something about it. That's my only comment. Why things like new development, Bridgewater, going to be additional developments on that site as well. Why sometimes, and just the record, there is the last housing development in North Heatherton has solar panels, Carrots Farm Buildings on the shop there, and that was down to my intervention at the planning meeting, and it was carried out. So it's just a forward step maybe because people are having anti-solar farms, just too many of them. You're all thinking now. I'm sorry for all that up, make life a bit complicated, right? But that's how I am sometimes.
Well, all I can say is I've been in planning 23 years now, and I would say 15 years ago, there was a real water down of the requirement for code level 4 houses, zero carbon. I think it was around 2010. 2010, I was reading policies where we were supposed to be doing zero carbon for all properties by 2016, and it never happened. And as a result of the financial crisis way back when, the policy for that got watered down. Now we've attempted to kind of rebuild on that, but it kind of went back to just basic building control, building regulation standards. There is a condition attached to this, should you be minded to approve, condition 33 that talks about a sustainability statement. And in that it sets out requirements for water and energy conservation, waste minimisation and recycling, but there is nothing currently set that demands or there's a mandatory requirement for solar panels. There should be, and if I was in charge there would be, but I'm not in charge. I just have to deal with the policies that we're given. But from 2010, just as a history lesson, it was watered down.
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoke.
Following on from Councillor Bradford, I just wanted to say as well, just the last thing, I would love in the future for Persimmon Homes to be the lead people to actually consider bungalows. Do you know, we're an ever-growing population, and I would love them to consider being the outstanding ones who actually say, do you know what, I'm going to do the right thing for the right people because we're all getting very, very old. Well, I am, and that would be a really good head starter, because the ones in Heathcombe Road and along, they are bungalows, and the integration of that would have been fabulous. But there we are.
Thank you, but we can only consider what's before us. And you have seconded the proposal, proposed by councillor Bolt, with the additional requirements on connectivity plan regarding improvements to the existing rights of way. Do we need more wording than that to?
I'm happy that we can take that to add into the header terms, so we can secure that through the legal agreement.
Okay.
May I just ask, is there anything as well we could do, anything to add to it about the rights of way? But like, I know we've got these dark corridors, but I still think, is there any consideration could be made about that?
I think as part of the debate, and Persimmon have been present listening to it as well, the one bit that's missing from my mind is the direct connection from the top of the site into the existing public right of way. So that would be something we would expect to come through, discharge of the section 106 when that connectivity requirement comes through.
Okay, thank you. So proposal and seconder to agree the officer's recommendation to accept the application with those additional requirements around the public rights of way. All those in favour, please show. No. 11-4 against, those against, that's 1. And any abstentions? No, and bearing in mind, Councillor Bruce is unable to vote. All right, thank you very much, members, for a full debate. We'll just give a few minutes for the next presentation to be set up. And if we say a 5-minute comfort break. No, Councillor Smedley, for the record. So we will now go into agenda item 6, which is the application for 42 Bath Road, Ashcott. Jordan, are you taking us through this one?
Yes. Afternoon, everybody. This is plan application 012513, 42 Bath Road, Ashcott. For the application for outline planning permission with all matters reserved for the change of use of land from agricultural to residential and the erection of 2 self-build dwellings. The reason it's been brought to committee today is to discuss the self-build and B&G this slide here shows the relevant local and neighbourhood policies. This slide here shows the relevant planning guidance and main considerations of this application. The site location is just outside the settlement boundary to Ashcott, with it along Bath Road within this area of open space here, as highlighted by the red circle. And on the right hand side is the location plan submitted by the agent. This slide here shows the proposed site plan of the 2 dwellings. This slide here shows the looking from the main road, main A39 road looking south onto the site. This slide here is showing the what the site from Pedwell Lane looking northwards. The application site won't be the entire field of as seen in this image. It's just to the very northern part of the field. This slide here on the left is looking eastwards along the A39. The middle is looking at the proposed access to the site, and the right is looking west along with the A39. This slide here shows the Parish Council objections to the proposals. And this slide here shows the representations received. On a plan and balance in principle, as the development is situated outside of Ashcott, it therefore is considered countryside development and must therefore comply with CO1. The proposal has been submitted as an infill proposal and therefore must comply with both CO2 and D9. It's considered that development is infill due to the number of surrounding dwellings and buildings. As the proposal is with all matters reserved, a limited assessment can be made to the implications of the proposal of the surrounding landscape. It is considered that the proposed site is surrounded by residential dwellings to the north, east and west, and therefore is not out of character from the area. As the application is for outline consent, there is no need for the applicant to demonstrate a local connection. However, as this would be required at reserved matter stage, there must also be a residual demand for self-built plots in Ashcott, as long as they can demonstrate a local connection. The parish has a demand for 5 self-built plots, with plan application 0125-6 recently granted for the outline of 3 self-built plots, and therefore this proposal would be considered for 2 self-built plots. Does meet that residual need. This was confirmed by our policy team during the application. Ashcott Parish Council objected to the proposal as considered that the site could not support 2 self-built properties on this plot, but would be open for a single dwelling on the plot. However, it's considered that from the submitted proposed site plan, each dwelling would be supported by sufficient amenity space that would not have a detriment impact on the occupiers of the dwelling and or lead to a cramped environment or overdevelopment of the site. Therefore, it is considered it complies with CO1, CO2 and D9. Ecological issues. The application was supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal, which was accepted by the council's ecologist, who has suggested further conditions to protect ecological assets. Representation submitted highlighted concerns regarding the loss of biodiversity on the site if the site was developed. Policy D20 of the local plan will only support plan applications where it's demonstrated that the development will either provide a positive or neutral impact on the local biodiversity. As shown by the no objection response from the council's ecologist, it is considered that the proposed development would not have a detrimental impact to the local biodiversity. The proposal will also be BNG liable, however, or biodiversity net gain liable, I do apologise. However, as the proposal is for 2 self-builds, it would be exempt from this condition requiring this information to be met. In terms of residential impact, it is considered there's sufficient amenity space or separation distance from the neighbouring properties, and as such, the proposed dwellings would not have any impact. The visual look of the proposed dwellings will be confirmed at reserve matter stage, the design of which will need to not have a detrimental impact on the character of the area. In terms of highways, the Highways Authority issues standing advice. It's considered that there is sufficient parking on site to meet the relevant guidance. There were concerns, however, regarding the access being onto the busy A39 road. But it is considered there's over 70 metres of visibility from the proposed access, and as such, this is considered acceptable. It is also to note that that road along that section of the A39 is, I believe, is 30 miles per hour. In terms of drainage, it's situated within flood zone 1. However, it is in the Parrot catchment area for phosphates. The proposals indicates the be linked up to the main Wessex drains if, as such, it's acceptable. Updates to the report. Please note that there is a slight typo in the planning history regarding planning reference 012424. This should read 012124. The biodiversity net gain informative will also be attached to ensure that this is compliant with legislation. And the condition 1, the format has a format issue. This will be rectified prior to determination if the application is granted. Overall, it is considered that the proposed dwellings are acceptable as infill self-built dwellings and will not have a detrimental impact on the residential amenity, nor a negative impact on highway safety, ecological networks, or drainage. And therefore, the recommendation is to approve plan application 012513, subject to conditions and a legal agreement. I will now pass over to Dawn, who will explain a recent appeal outcome.
Thank you. So as part of the appeals catch up at the end, so I'll try not to drop too many spoilers. But we had a self-build decision come back from the planning inspectorate. This basically said that condition wouldn't be sufficient to contain the development of self-build, so it should be secured by 106 or a unilateral undertaking. So the council has changed its approach. Some areas of the authority were already securing self-builds through 106. So universally now we will be securing self-builds through 106. So it's a slight change of approach. I know there was quite a few self-builds that came to committee last month, but going forward, applications for self-build development will currently have a relatively short and hopefully succinct 106 agreement, because it also makes them exempt from BNG. So it's another reason to secure it legally, because otherwise people are using the self-build route as a kind of get out jail free card for the 10% BNG.
Thank you for that and for that update. That's really useful. We've got no speakers for this application, so members, any councillor Slocum.
Apologise, it's me again, but I just wanted to say, is there no design? I know you said this is reserved matters, but you know, we're approving something in principle, and yet we're not actually seeing the design of it. I mean, it could end up being something really awful. I would like to see what it looked like, what they're proposing it looks like, please.
Thank you. The application is for outline. So at this stage, we're just looking at the principle of 2 dwellings. Can you just flash up the site location plan? So effectively, the question that we're asking at this point, go back to the other one, is do 2 dwellings comfortably fit in this space? So in terms of outline, it's just, does the principle of 2 fit in this space? What they look like, where they sit, how big they are, and what they look like that all comes as a reserve matters application, which will be a second application after this one. Because of the self-build requirements, there is a requirement for a local connection. So whoever ends up designing them needs to also demonstrate that they've got a local connection to this area to comply with the self-build requirement. So at this stage, it's just outline planning permission. So the question is, do two fit in here? So that's the indicative layout, but it's not consented layout. And can you go to the previous slide that just shows it in the wider area? So again, you've got built up development along to the left, you've got built up development to the right. So for us, in terms of the self-build guidance, is this an appropriate infill space? I think the initial application that we had, the first reference number that we had for self-build was for a single dwelling. I think we as officers felt that a single dwelling in this space was perhaps not enough because it felt like it was trying to stretch to fit too big a footprint. But we're quite happy that two would quite comfortably fit in that gap, but the detail would be subject to a future application.
Madam Chairman, sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult really, but so we don't know what it's, so they'll come back again to committee or they could go through delegated. We won't have an opportunity to actually say we like the look of this, we don't like the look of this. It's not in keeping with the surrounding area, but we're actually giving them the go ahead to build anything they like, could look like a spaceship. I just don't feel that's right intuitive.
The second application will still need to get sign off through professional planning officers. So if it does come back in, it could be a delegated decision. But in that case, our scheme of delegation is that an officer drafts it relative to all the design policies and guidance that we've got, and that is then reviewed and signed off by principal officer. So I'm happy there is oversight of whether it's an appropriate size, scale and design. And if we get the revised application in and we go, oh, this looks awful, it's horrendous, we can actually refuse it on whatever the issues are. So the fact that we support an outline planning application doesn't give them carte blanche to deliver anything. The revised application still has to go through the appropriate checks and balances. It may end up back at committee, but there is a national scheme of delegation coming out, which would say if it's not back for committee, that doesn't mean we won't be checking it for design and layout and form. If you can go to the second slide again. So looking at the general form of development in the area, the property immediately to the left is set back quite significantly from the road. This is only indicative. So this is only to show how it could be done. This isn't how they're saying it will be done, but the properties are shown set back to reflect that building line. I think that's a positive approach, but it's not the detail of the application that we're signing off. We're just looking at, in principle, do two fit in this space.
Thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Just a couple of things. One was, this is, you say, the application in front of us, sort of two dwellings. On page 112, we actually say that there's enough space for three dwellings. I wouldn't want an enterprising agent to say, oh, well, in the report, it said three, so could we come back to three when we come for reserve matters? So if that could potentially be corrected, that would be helpful.
I think we're happy to note that as a drafting error.
Thank you very much. And on a similar vein, on one of the conditions, number 3, I think it might be the development rather than the dwelling hereby, or the dwellings could be, but it said just dwelling on condition number 3, the opening words.
Yeah. Happy again, we can add an S onto the end of dwellings. Thank you.
Councillor Hendry.
Sure. I'm not going to speak to you all, all right? Yeah. It's like in the afternoon, I'm tired. Couple of points, flood zone 1, great, yeah. You could just class this straightforward as an infill. This is not complicated at all by any means. Highways are absolutely fine. I think you said 70-metre splay, entry and exit. We can't ask for much more than that. So yes, ecology is on board, but there's no problem there at all. I actually don't see a problem of any kind. I just said it's not complicated. 2 houses, infill, and the highways are on board with it. So at this moment in time, I'm okay with all this. Okay.
Thank you. Any more comments or any proposals? Councillor Murphy.
I've been looking at the landscape drawing. It's like a personal drawing, on the application, the very first page of the application, and it shows you the layout, street. And it's interesting that 11 of the houses to the left any of those houses could easily fit into this space. And I think that speaks volumes, really, in terms of acceptance for it. I'm not going to propose it, but I just want to point that out, that it's quite simple, really.
Thank you.
Chair, like someone to propose something,
Yes,
I'll
please.
propose the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. So proposed by Councillor Filmer with the conditions, 106 conditions around self-build and B&G, which I'm really pleased to see. Councillor Hendry, you did have your hand up first.
Somebody else wants to second that, sorry.
No,
I'm happy to second it, but
no, well, you were first.
Okay, it's fine.
I was you to quite too much yourselves, but
That's fine.
so we've got a proposal and a second there to approve the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please show. And those against? And abstentions, one abstention. So that was, can we just give a count of how many were? Yeah, 20, thank you. Okay, so just give a few moments for officers to go to the next application and then we'll be on the final application for the afternoon.
Retrospective. Trying to.
Okay, thank you. So we're now on agenda item 7, which is the application for Chestnut Cottage, in pages 117 to 132. Eleanor, would you like to take us through, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is for planning application 31250014 at Chestnut Cottage, Purving Row Lane, Nimpsham, and it's for the retrospective change of use of some house to a self-contained holiday unit and B&B. So this is the proposed site location. Sorry, apologies, the arrow is slightly off on the right-hand side. So it's accessed via Purving Row Lane, which is a non-adopted highway, which is accessed via South Road, which is an unclassified highway. It's sited within a rural location, as you can see on the plan. So this is the proposed site plan. So the proposed summer house is in the residential curtilage of the main dwelling, Chestnut Cottage, and on the right-hand side is the aerial view of the site. So that's the proposed summer house, which is existing. So this was the consensus summer house under 3121-00009. So this was consented a couple of years ago, subject to conditions. So this was for a domestic summer house to be used by the users of the main dwelling. So the applicants commenced use of the summer house as a holiday let in summer 2024. But the summer house planning consent contained condition 3, which is specified on the presentation, which said the building hereby approved shall only be used for activities ancillary to the existing dwelling house on site currently known as Chestnut Cottage, and no part shall be used or let otherwise disposed of as a separate unit of accommodation. The applicant submitted a certificate of lawfulness to regulise the use as a holiday let. However, because of this restrictive condition, it was considered this route couldn't be used to regulise the use of the holiday let.
So they submitted a full planning application, which is what we have in front of us. So this was submitted and then it needs to be considered against the relevant policies in the local plan. So the main considerations would be the principle of development. So policy CO1 in the Sedgemoor local plan permits buildings in rural locations, provided there's a justified need. Policy D17 in the local plan also permits buildings for tourist development, provided there is a robust justification and it's viable. So this is already an existing building, so it's a reuse of an existing building. It's sited in a location that's in proximity to tourist sites. It's also an existing business. The applicant has been able to demonstrate that it's a viable business, and they've had 120 bookings within the last year. In terms of design and impact on the character appearance of the area, it's an existing building. I'll show you some site photos in a second. Impact on residential amenity, as shown on the site location plan, it is quite some distance from the adjoining neighbouring dwellings. In terms of the impact on highway safety, this holiday let can sleep up to 2 people, so it's unlikely the vehicle movements is going to generate such a significant impact on the highway, but it would merit refusal. Also, the proposed parking area would be the existing parking area that serves the main dwelling, which is more than large enough to site the required vehicles. In terms of flood risk, the site is within flood zone 3A. However, it's the applicants have submitted a site-specific flood risk assessment and a flood warning and evacuation plan with the application, and the Environment Agency has considered those acceptable. So we would recommend conditions to secure the flood warning and evacuation plan and the flood risk assessment. So this is the existing and proposed floor elevations for the proposed holiday let. So that's very similar to the existing Sun House. It's just the external layout that is different. So these are the site photographs. So this is the site from Purving Row Lane. As you approach the site, you can see where the red arrow is pointing. That's the view you'd have of the summer house. It's not overly prominent. So this is the site from the adjoining carriageway. So you can see there's boundary treatments that somewhat screen the site. That's just some close-up photos of the proposed building. So this is the nearest neighbouring dwelling and the existing host dwelling and the proposed parking area. And this is the host dwelling. So the recommendation would be to grant planning permission as the proposal would comply with the relevant policies in the local plan. Or we'll be recommending granting planning permission subject to the below conditions. So in accordance with the approved plans, that will be used as holiday or ancillary accommodation only, and the development will be in accordance with the flood risk assessment and the flood warning and evacuation plan. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a speaker on this application, and I'd like to invite Kate Margaret, who is the applicant, to the table, please. Kate, you'll have 3 minutes. Just let us know when you're ready.
Ready. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. We appreciate that today's discussions focused us on flooding and the breach of conditions, and we'd like to take a few minutes to share our thoughts on these matters and on why we believe our small family-run business deserves your support. First and foremost, we'd like to reassure the committee that every professional consultee has raised no objections. The Environmental Agency, Rights of Way Officer, Somerset Highways and Environmental Health have all carefully reviewed our proposal and found no issue. Regarding flooding, we've worked closely with professionals to prepare a flood warning and evacuation strategy, which the Environmental Agency has formally accepted as acceptable and safe. We take that responsibility very seriously and are fully committed to following it, not only to meet planning requirements, but because the safety of our guests and community genuinely matters to us. We understand that this matter has come before you following comments made by the Parish Council. While we respect the Parish Council's role, it is disappointing that many of their remarks appear to be based on presumption rather than professional advice. After our certificate of lawfulness was refused, we spoke directly with planning enforcement, who confirmed verbally that they were not sending a stop notice. That advice was given after the refusal, which is why the bed and breakfast has remained open while the planning process is resolved. If the parish council had been privy to our conversation with planning enforcement, they would understand that no stop notice has been issued against us and would not have made false accusations of continued intentional breach. We want to make it very clear that we never intentionally breached any planning condition. The moment we became aware that permission was required, we acted immediately to put things right. Both our planning officer and an enforcement officer have explained that the policy around ancillary use of the outbuilding is something of a grey area and can be interpreted in different ways. We were also advised by a reputable planning consultant who assured us that our use of the outbuilding fell within the definition of ancillary use. This ambiguity and conflicting professional guidance contributed to the misunderstanding and the resulting unintentional breach. Throughout, we've done our best to be open, honest and cooperative. Our bed and breakfast is not a large commercial enterprise. It's a single self-contained space that we've created with care and pride. Over the past year, we've welcomed over 120 guests, many visiting Somerset for the first time. They've described our place as peaceful, welcoming and full of heart. And we're proud that it's given people a special experience of our area while supporting local cafes, shops and attractions. This small venture has brought something positive not just to us but to our wider community. It represents what rural tourism can and should be: responsible, sustainable and rooted in care for the place we call home. So in closing, we respectfully ask that you make your decision based on planning merit and on the professional recommendations of your planning officer who has advised that permission be granted. Thank you very much.
Members. Councillor Slocum.
I see no issue with this whatsoever. I think they've gone through everything, and I think that we should give them the opportunity. So I'd like to propose this application, please.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. I think the speaker's given us a background to the history of this. I think reading the comments from the parish council, I think there has obviously been this understanding of sort of what was happening in terms of what the conditions were and what permissions were allowed. So I think that that's where the parish council's concern initially came from. They read the conditions and thought something wasn't right. So the applicant's gone through the right way. They've dealt with our planning officers. They've dealt with the enforcement team. They've come back with an application, which is now in front of us. In terms of any impact on anybody else, if anybody ever went out to this site, it's, and no disrespect, it's in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't find it unless you were trying to find it. And in fact, when I first became ward member for the area, I think it took me several years to work out that there were residences down the little lanes between Lipsham and the A370. So it's just a lovely site. I can understand why it worked in terms of the application. And I think where the parish council haven't picked up on is obviously the local plan policies that we have for supporting tourist businesses. And that's where this now qualifies under. So it's nothing to do with what's gone before. It's an application for a tourism use. So I can't see the wrong with the recommendation.
We've got a proposer and seconded by Councillor Martin to agree the officer's recommendation to approve. All those in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Okay, thank you, members. That's nice to finish with a thank you. Right. We'll go on to a final item on the agenda, which is the appeal reports, please.
Fabulous, so you get me again. So appeals, we've got 3 of them. They were all delegated decisions, but I'll run through them all anyway. So the first one was 159 Brent Street, Brent, which was for a self-build application. It had standing advice from Highways, but it was not considered acceptable in terms of visibility, and because of the poor visibility, potential impact on vulnerable road users. And they also set out that because there wasn't 106 for self-build, there was no certainty that it would be delivered as self-build, and therefore they also erred in not submitting the exemption. There was no certainty over the exemption of BNG without the control of the 106, which is where the change in approach is that we've taken. But any questions on that one before I go on the next one? Fabulous. We've then got an application that was submitted for conversion to a 9-bed HMO, with parking to the rear. So this is at 41 Taunton Road in Bridgewater. It was noted that there would be harm to the amenity as a result of the change. So in particular, they picked on one of the particular bedrooms, which was close to the rear garden door, and the rear garden being the main amenity area that people would be going in and out of all the time, was considered to adversely impact on that particular occupier. Also in terms of given the use of the accommodation as 9-bed HMO, there was limited social space. So if anyone was having a friend home, they'd be socialising in the bedrooms, and the bedrooms adjoined party walls to the neighbouring semi-detached property. So it was considered to cause disruption to the neighbours. And also the large amount of parking in the back garden, it sort of basically showed 9 parking spaces in the back garden, which again would lead to increased noise and disruption of the coming and going of people, much in excess of what you'd expect to see for a residential development. It did note that it was supposed to be accommodation in connection with school, and they were intending to manage the accommodation appropriately. But again, the inspector said there was limited certainty over how they were going to do that and how that would reduce the impacts to make it acceptable. So again, it was dismissed. And the third and final one was an application at 9 Main Road, West Huntsville. This one was for, I think, 6 dwellings. The inspector concluded that its location in principle conflicts with policy because it's in a location that's relatively sparse residential development outside of the main settlements. So whilst it is close to and could access some facilities, the layout and the form of development would not be in keeping with the countryside location and character. It's also an area of flood risk, and it failed the sequential test because it didn't undertake a wide enough search area. They limited the search area and they were only looking for land parcels that were big enough to put 6 dwellings on. The planning practice guidance has been updated to say if you're doing a sequential search, you can look for smaller sites if you're looking for multiple versions of smaller sites to fulfil the need. So you don't have to limit it to sites that are just big enough to fit the number of dwellings that you want. And given that there was no local need or requirement for them to be there, the search area should have been much bigger. So policy D1 actually says that it should be district wide. So they fell short on that. They were also proposing 100% market housing. So again, no affordable housing justification or local affordable housing need identified or argued as part of the development. So bearing in mind we haven't got a 5-year land supply, we did quite well defending 3 appeals. They all got dismissed. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. Good to see all those appeals dismissed. Councillor Filmer.
Oh, following up on the last sentence you mentioned there about 5-year land supply. And we obviously hear about that in the tilted balance with each application we now have. When does that next get reassessed? Because obviously we make decisions and we grant more permission. So at what point does that 5-year get relooked at so that we're not constantly failing because of that figure?
That's a really good question. And if I'm 100% honest, I'm going to say I don't know. But my best guess would be the government introduced the update to the NPPF that escalated the figures way in excess of what most of us have got in our adopted local plans. We are working on an emerging local plan, and that will accommodate for those figures, but we're still a couple of years out from that. We do look at, I think we provide annual performance figures against housing delivery against the figures that we should be delivering. So I think if it did materially change on an annual basis, we might be able to pick up then, but beyond then, I think we're probably looking at the adoption of the local plan. Interesting, the flood risk one basically says that if you are at significant flood risk, that outweighs the balance because it is significant and demonstrable harm, which is the test now in terms of the tilted balance. So the tilted balance is generally enforced unless there's a significant and demonstrative impact as a result of approving it. So flood risk in the flood risk case one was significant enough. With the self-build, the consideration was given to the tilted balance, but then also the weight to give to that was fairly limited because it was one dwelling. So you'll see the tilted balance becoming more enforced when it's larger development schemes. because individual dwellings, only adding one dwelling to a deficiency in housing land supply isn't going to hold as much weight as if you're doing 9 or 10.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's all comments. So,
Chairman,
Councillor Sloper.
it's not about this, but could I, why we've got Dawn, it's so lovely to see you, Dawn, because you don't get to see you now, and you've got this metal force field around you, can't even get to you, so it's really hard. But I wonder if I could just request something that was in an earlier application. Could we please find a way where we can consult with the ICB on our building numbers? Because I think what happened before, what was said, that we didn't get that really good reply from them. They would probably say they felt they couldn't because there was insequential, there wasn't probably no point in them. I don't want them to feel that. So I just wondered if we can forge the links to them to make sure that they do come here, because it is right. We're building houses, as Councillor Bruce has said, we're building houses and we don't know if we've got the services. I'm in a bit of a difficult one because we want to build houses. I get told that we're not building enough. I get that from everyone, and yet we're not putting the services in place. But we need those two things to knit together better. I just wondered if that was a request by you, service manager, if I may.
I would love to give you reassurance and say it's already happening. To a degree, a little bit of it, I think, is that when we were first starting to get comments from the NHS, when it was a new thing, and that sits for the lifetime of this application, because the application is that old, that we weren't consulting them in 2019, but we did start consulting them halfway through the process. When we initially started consulting them, we did have almost an understanding that for the live applications that are near the end of the process, you don't want to upset the apple cart and ask for a load of things late. But we have now said to them, we will be consulting you on applications, you give us your comments, we'll deal with it. With the application that members saw first, they were consulted because they were added to the consultation, so they did have 2 separate consultations on it in the relatively not too distant future. We received their comment, and Louise was actually quite gracious, she said late, but we received their comment at the start of October, by which point we were drafting the report for this meeting, because we'd already gone through all the liability arguments, we'd already gone through the corporate directorates and things like that. So they really, really were late in the day on that point. Notwithstanding that, had they given us a proper comment like they normally do, and they do normally give us a proper comment where they set out what the requirement is, what the contribution is, we still could have factored that in if we'd have had that, but they chose not to give it. I don't know why.
I think they felt
because it's quite
complete, didn't they? They felt they couldn't, but
it's quite unusual.
Yeah.
Normally we get the breakdown and we get the contribution. So we didn't get it in this case, and it came incredibly late. So there wasn't enough time.
But even I didn't know this was coming. And I've got to tell you, I need to I didn't even know this was in my ward, and that's a bit worrying. That normally I subscribe. I just wanted to bring that up really, because as a ward councillor, I didn't know this one was coming. And we've had to really, I've had to really sort of get things together. Poor Lee's been wonderful. And I have to say, before, dare I say this, before you would let, as the officer, you'd let us know, ward councillors, something's coming up and everything else. We don't get that now, and it's really hard. And I'm just thinking if the ICB are in the same mode as us, then perhaps they're not getting told enough. And I just would like that. I'd like to restore our links. Shall I say that, please? Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sorry for the dog.
I think the point has been made and heard, but there's only so much we can do, and it is up to the other organisations to respond, and they have been asked. So that left us in a difficult position. But thank you. It's been an interesting afternoon with good debate. But I will now declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.